you don't need to like the let's say, the theme parks of Disney. You don't need to like them, but you must appreciate the finesse and an artistry, how the experiences are created. It's not magic in terms of no one can do it, no one can copy it. It is magic, but you can have your own version. And just because we are in a well-being and experience, it doesn't mean that we cannot create our own magic.
Bienvenidos a Volver al Futuro Podcast, donde platicamos con las mentes que nos impulsan a crear el nuevo paradigma de salud y bienestar, conducido por Víctor Sadia.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Lszl Puczkó.
László Puczkó ha trabajado en turismo médico y de bienestar por más de 20 años. Es ingeniero, economista, estratega y consultor para instituciones públicas y privadas. Ha sido el presidente de la Asociación de Consultores de Turismo, así como fundador del Observatorio de Turismo de Salud, Bienestar y Spa. Como conferencista y autor de libros, es considerado uno de los mayores expertos en su campo.
László, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Victor, for the invitation. Much appreciated. Thank you.
I'm very curious about young László. What was he thinking when he started off his professional studies?
It's certainly the young one never thought that he would be so much specialized in anything to do with well-being, leisure and travel. He was back then always enjoying have a lovely soak in a hot spring, which is in Central America, Mexico is a thing. Since you have the amazing resources there. And over here, because I'm in Europe, that certainly was something that we could really enjoy. My hometown, which is a small historic spa town, I had the experience to do that. So I really liked that, but I never thought it would be a profession as such. I was graduating in business studies, and I never thought I would like to deal with, soaps and washing powders and all that boring thing, but necessary but boring things. And then I thought, hang on, I would like to deal with arts and design and whatever, performing arts and museums and all that, and travel. And then it became a combination, and ever since it's been further and further specialized as well as generalized, because when you talk about experiences, that's a general thing. It's not an industry thing, it's a general thing. And then applications, I always do the generalization as well as the specialization and try to bridge. So that's what the path really is, and doing education, business as well as higher education, trainings, authoring, industry materials as well as academic materials. Was for years head of school in a university, and then I was manager for a regional department of an international advisory firm in travel, leisure and tourism. So I've been in various places, in and out, but that's inspiring. I like that.
And then you did also a PhD on business tourism.
Yes.
We don't hear that much. What exactly did you do as a PhD, and how your eclectic prior studies really helped in shaping this, I guess, interdisciplinary view of wellness tourism?
The PhDs is always showing capability of setting up, administer, and analyze research activities, academically rigorous research activities. That's what the whole PhD is about, that you show capacity, that you learn the ins and outs of how you do research. And that's what really is the case back then. It's now 20 years that completed. And that was back then thinking that, okay, wanted to have a bit of academia as a career choice. And that was very much necessary back then. But even now, it helps to do rigorous analysis of the situation, because the PhD approach helps to really be solid in terms of intelligence development, understanding what's going on, not necessarily believing the first hit on Google that comes up first. So that certainly helped a lot, shaping the whole approach to any issue, not just to tourism. But back then, I think I was one of the two people who got PhD in tourism in this country. So that was back then the first thing. Never existed prior to that. So it was one of the elements of this journey.
Can you give us a brief overview of how health tourism has evolved over the past, 40, 50 years? And how has that been changing lately through this merging of healthcare with wellness?
I think what's really important here, and especially thinking of the audience that the podcast has, that you shouldn't believe anyone who says this is new, because it really isn't. What it is not new. How we do it, it may be new in certain respects, but anything to do with health, just think about the Mayans, think about the various other tribal approaches that have been around for thousands of years, looking at hot springs and hot lodges and sweat lodges and whatever that is. It's nothing new there. Just because we put it in a fancy hotel spa, it doesn't make it new as what it does. So from that perspective, is very little new here. Obviously, healthcare advancement, technology, protocols, and everything made the product more evolved and more developed, and we can now offer amazing treatments, save lives, expand life expectancy and even health expectancy. So there's lots of things happened in that respect. And the pandemic obviously made a lot of people think about health more in a holistic way and personal, not just sometimes somewhere I would need to think about it, more like I need to think about it and do something about it now. So as we all kind of, I think, anticipate that it was very much separated, the medical side and the wellness side. And wellness side in North America and Central America, if I may say that, especially the wellness part has a very different understanding than you may have in Europe or in Asia. The labels are the same, content is different. Because when you think about wellness in USA or Canada, for the matter, and because of that, a lot of that is copied in Mexico or copied in Costa Rica and let's say now Guatemala or Panama or even Colombia or Argentina, Brazil, it's very much the high end. Whereas when you go to these fantastic hot spring locations in any part of Central America, no one talks about wellness. You talk about lifestyle, you talk about leisure, you talk about happiness, joy, rest and relaxation. You don't think about, it's going to be a lovely wellness experience to go to this and this hot spring in the lovely rainforest. So it isn't. But now we're selling it as a wellness experience. So that's very much defined by the North American high-end understanding. Whereas if you go to Europe, and especially many parts of Europe, and go to Asia, Far East, anything to do with that, you'd still have the high-end part, but you do have kind of an accessible, I would call it an accessible service provision that anyone can afford, if you think about it. And that's important to me, that you need to provide the necessary ways in which more people can have access to it and can benefit from it. And plus, it takes you to the situation that we can always incorporate well-being improving components to every single service and not calling it wellness, because it's not the point. The point is how and what I benefit from it. And our guest might say, actually, it was such a fantastic, relaxing experience, or I feel rejuvenated, I feel distressed. You don't use wellness as such because your triggers are different.
Is this a strategy, a commercial strategy, let's say from the US point of view, of repackaging nature, repackaging experiences that are, as you say, lifestyle, and selling it back to you in a more curated marketing way? Does that have something to do with it, or base another?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, the sanitized, glorified, turned into a product sort of thing. That certainly is one way of doing it. I don't want to have a judgment over it because it's one way of doing it. I mean, there's a market for it. You can sell it. It works well. People like it. You can make business out of it. That's fine. There's nothing wrong about it. So it certainly is one way of doing it. But I think for any destination or any operator, or any investor, or any association or cluster or whatever you want to call it, because Mexico has a lot of those, looking at the medical side as well as on the wellness side, I think you would need to step back a little and revisit and recognize that this is the commercialized version of what we do, which is fine, that's okay, but that comes with consequences. That people may not appreciate it that much because they don't know what it is, because it's simplified so much that it becomes sort of a different product altogether. So I think what's important is the realization of what I am doing, where it sits in the genuinity or in the authenticity or in any of those scales. Where does it sit? And wherever you want to place it, it has consequences. And that's what this mismatch that I am placing it in this position, I expect twice as much. And then it becomes an issue. But don't forget, when you want to introduce something which is not known at the market where you are promoting to or introducing it to, you need to do some degree of simplification, because they don't have the reference, they don't understand the cultural references, the heritage, the nature, they associate it with some risks which may or may not be there. So they don't know. So you simplify. But it's your responsibility how much you simplify and what you say about it and how you introduce it. It's always the operator's responsibility or developer's responsibility.
You know what really struck a note when I read the definition of wellness, which there are thousands, but at least the way that philosophically we need to understand wellness more as obviously a holistic approach, obviously as a continuum rather than a specific fixed state. But the thing that really struck me was that it was the responsibility of the individual, and it is about potential, about helping the individual move toward a higher state of well-being, and the importance of self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-integration, which I think those words are philosophically very charged, and the way we consume wellness usually doesn't really involve the way of you facing a mirror and knowing yourself and getting responsible for your own health. And I think that's a big promise that the companies make and don't usually deliver, because at the end of the day, they want to sell products to you and not really empower you to bring wellness from the inside out.
You had a very interesting hard sentence, which is consuming wellness. that was a very interesting point and a very relevant point, obviously. So it became a product which you buy. You buy wellness towels, you buy wellness treatments, you buy wellness clothes, whatever. I mean, anything is wellness now. And what is somehow missing, that your responsibility in all this, it's not like a product you go to a shop, buy it from the shelf, you go home and you will be well. That doesn't work like that, or does to a certain extent, but that's very superficial. I think that's why we call it kind of a McDonalization of wellness, and that's why I try not to use it. And I use more like the well-being approach, because academically, scientifically, as well as politically, I think well-being is an established terminology that's been around for a long, long time. That exists in Spanish as well as a terminology, or in German, or whichever other language. Wellness is a created word. That's not an established. It's 50 years or 60 years old. But well-being has been existing in every society, one way or another. And that, I think, really is, if someone really wanted to move into the next level of hospitality, for the matter, or spa services, or whatever that is, I think, which I call, hospitality 4.0. The story is that when you say, I'm a wellness hotel, sometimes it's more like a contradiction in terms, because hospitality per se should be providing the framework in which the guests have the best possible way of their stay, which includes that you're well, you feel happy, you're balanced, you're harmony, blah blah blah. So when certain brands say, "Oh, I'm going to have well rooms," sorry, does that mean that the other rooms are not well? I said, you have unwell rooms as well, but that becomes more of a stupid academic research sort of idea, because someone says, I have well rooms, obviously the rest of the rooms are not well. Just comes with logic. But because you're selling it as a product, no one necessarily considers that kind of consequences. You don't care, because you just go for the label, you go for the catchphrase. So that's why when I talk to operators or destinations or whoever that is, that guys, can we just stop here for a second and revisit what you do and check where we can improve and what we can do. We've been doing mentoring services for, as I mentioned, in Costa Rica and DMCs, for example, saying that, okay, just the first note when you welcome your guests and what you provide in the minibus, what the rest. I have so many options. I can bring in well-being improving components to any guest, cultural guest, nature guest, adventure guest, whatever guest. But I know it is my job that whatever I bring in will contribute to the guests' well-being. And at the end of the day, they will have a richer, more content experience out of it. And they will appreciate that kind of additional element or puzzle that we're putting in, but you don't make every single guest as wellness guest. That's no way. And it's so because of the very different understanding of wellness as such, how it is promoted, how it is introduced, and how it is manifested. One of the communal hot spring places in Mexico or Costa Rica or Colombia as wellness, because for the US guest, it would not mean anything like that. That would be like what is that? Where is the marble? Where is the golden plate? Where is the plush towels? Where is the 20,000 employees? So you're missing the boat. Sitting in, honestly, one of the most memorable kind of wellness experience to me was in one of the hot springs in Colombia, sitting in a valley. And the moon is rising, and I am listening to the creek next to the little pool, which was, by European standards, it was a health risk because it was so different from it. So it wouldn't pass by any European standards, but it was absolutely magical. Then you're soaked into that experience, and you take into a very different level. It was spiritual, it was holistic, it was physical, it was mental. I was with friends, so it was just a total package. And you don't need the $1 million investment to create that. But that's hard. That's hard to tell guests. It's hard to tell operators. That's why I said, yeah, okay, you know what? Don't tell me that you want to create a wellness experience. Let's discuss who you want to talk to and what exactly you want to provide for them. And in the end, I will tell you what the best fit, which may or may not be a wellness experience by whichever understanding.
This really makes me reflect in three ways. One is, I know you've been an advocate of really revising the terms and the labels we put to things, and you go to taxonomies and words, which I think that's the first step on really understanding what you want to say, what you want to do, what you want to make your customers feel. Second is basically asking each one of us, what is a wellness experience for you? And how much was that engineered or designed? And how much was that also the possibility of spontaneity and just being in the right place, but not because you design everything that was there. And you said a very good word, which is framework. At the end of the day, what we as wellness facilitators, in a sense, or even health facilitators, is providing a framework, an environment where these things can spontaneously happen and will connect with each other in different ways. How can this be? I know that you've been explaining this to operators and customers, but how can this be also legitimized as a good way of doing business? Because if you're really trying to sell wellness, there's some elements that you won't be able to control.
The other thing is that I would step back a little and say that this is my job, or our job, let's say, that, we sit down and they say, oh, this is the project, what shall we do? And this is our job to define the various aspects of it, the psychological, the physical, the social, the whatever aspects that could contribute to the total experience of it. We can decide which of those would be orchestrated, which of those would be just created as a framework for, so the guests can create their own version of it. And what else we need to do to create those: technology, communication, products, space, or whatever that is. And if you looked at it from that perspective, then you can do that in hospitals. You can do that in clinics. It's not limited to cabanas. It's not limited to palm trees and massage beds. and lovely cushions and curtains flying in the wind. That's a cliche, which is fine. Cliches have their job. Good. But if you really wanted to create something which is typical or not typical, but represents you, not just as a country, but more like as a place or as an operator, you need to go deeper. You need to drill deeper in terms of how that general understanding is applied to my place, to my services. And then people will not describe me that, I don't know, what should I say? This Tulum experience was it's very similar to what I had in let's say, Dominican Republic, because you did something wrong there, because your services are described by someone else's services. So you didn't add anything to it. They tell you that marketers hate you if you said something like that, because they said that, well, come on now, that's the trick. And he said, oh, when you have a problem such as, what I had in that place, I can't really tell you. I can't put my fingers on it. I just don't know what it was. It was just so magical and so different and so inspiring and so different. It's just, honestly, I never had experienced anything like that done. But you can't just magic out of this. You need to understand the whole journey of the guests and what you want to do, what's happening. But you don't need to like the let's say the theme parks of Disney. You don't need to like them, but you must appreciate the finesse and an artistry, how the experiences are created. It's not magic in terms of no one can do it, no one can copy it. It is magic, but you can have your own version. And just because we are in a well-being and experience, it doesn't mean that we cannot create our own magic. But I have to be honest with you. This is why I never call ourselves like the hotel consultants or spa consultants, because I don't know what is need to be done. I need to find out what it needs to be done, and then sometimes you need to have to bring in other people because you have to bring in experience. And I think that's the trick. And for a country like Mexico or Central America, I'm jealous. Seriously, they have so much. I mean, so much. And of course, on the other hand, you have the brands bringing in the standards, bringing in the corporate standards, the protocols that I am this, therefore every single place has to be like this. Yeah, sure, fine, I understand. But guests may want to look for something beyond. And not all of them, of course, but that's why you need to understand who you want to talk to, even in medically. And I'm always we were talking to an IVF clinic, and they said, oh yeah, we are selling treatments. I said, no, you're not, actually. You're selling dreams, and you're selling life fulfillment. Because you're selling treatments, you're a totally wrong business. That's the whole website, everything was, defined by this, I'm selling services. And I said, guys, that's just totally wrong. Totally wrong.
I agree. Two questions. One, in general, like, for example, in the medical tourism side, like say traditional surgeries, bariatric and plastic, and the things that people travel for medical treatments, India, Thailand, Mexico, how do you see them integrating these wellness experiences into those medical touristic travels? And two, what do you think is the biggest opportunity for Mexico with the current infrastructure and what we have also as a natural setting to bring medical tourism also to this wellness integrated experience?
Well, I think you need to book another session to discuss all of this because it's such a complicated task. But no, really, joke aside, the medical part, people travel for medical reasons. Let's say like 6, 7, 8 different medical reasons why people travel to another country for medical services. Often, in the case of Mexico, that would be accessibility and price, because that's what it is. Because you can't afford the US healthcare. I mean, just simply as it is, especially in elective like dental, plastic, whatever it is, you can't. But often that is applicable to more complicated interventions, such as orthopedics or gastric, whatever it is, because you just can't afford the US prices, or you're not insured, whatever. What I think it's more relevant, because we have seen in many countries that you have the medical treatment, and pre or post, they add something wellnessy or culturally. But pre-treatment, people are worried. You're anxious. You're a different country, different language, different food, different people, different setting, blah, 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 and you have an operation or some intervention. Post, You either shouldn't do anything because you're still in rehabilitation, or you would love to go home first thing because you would like to be in your own bed. So that approach I would avoid. But you can you obviously you're selling not just the price, but having a dental implant is not as painful under the palm trees on the coastline than having it in a clinic and a strip mall. Funnily, it just isn't. But that's one thing, certainly, when you sell the whole package of it. But you can create all sort of soft components there, which could be. We haven't agreed on the topics. I'm just throwing in some ideas that. All right, what do we do with chocolate and chili? Does it have any kind of soft components that I can use in a treatment, pre and post or during, just to create something warm, to create something local, just to switch your mind off from what is happening or what will be happening? Or what exactly is the mythical component I can bring in as a ceremony or as a ritual? Something, of course, doesn't work with everyone because some people say it's a total nonsense, the whole thing, forget it. But to have a menu of alternatives, you can really create, which is, when I come home, I always said, yes, I did have a treatment in Mexico and I did have a treatment in wherever, instead of, yes, I had a treatment, in there, which was irrelevant where I was. To some people, that's irrelevant. Fast in, fast out, cheap, gone. Good, let it be. But should you go for different kind of guests, you may even recognize that you have more potential guests who wouldn't even think coming because there's the image of something kind of budget. And they don't want the budget. They don't actually necessarily want it, but they say, oh, hang on, this is sort of dressed up so beautifully and becomes more like a total experience which has some sort of healthcare component in it. It's more like something I would really consider and even spend money on it. But, we all know that certain treatments, the success rate is much higher if you provided mental, physical, whatever, counseling pre-treatment from home. Plastic surgeons don't do that. You come in, do the treatment, you go. But often, post-treatment, patients look into the mirror and say, seriously, this is the new me? I wouldn't ever have thought I would look like this. Who is that? And who's going to deal with those people? Not the surgeon, because he's already or she's already doing another patient who doesn't care. And when you go and look at the real patient journey or guest journey, more like, you can identify a lot of components. And this is where you have endless opportunities to create, which is you. Not just one of the 27,000 dental clinics in Guadalajara, but it will be you in Guadalajara. But that's not easy, honestly. It's not an easy task because people don't want to spend time or money on this. They don't see the value of it. They have traffic anyway, so why bother? But the whole idea is, and then we can see it in other countries as well, that they would like to limit, not limit as such, but sort of create opportunities at home so people wouldn't leave and take the money to somewhere else instead of supporting local economy, especially nowadays. So you would maybe think twice if you cross the border for a treatment, and it would need to be more than that or more fulfilling. Because any medical treatment, you're worried about the pain, you're worried about the success rate, you're worried about the maybe potential repercussions and what happens then. You can't go back again because you can't be transported. So I'm really advising everyone to say, yeah, fine, do medical treatment, good. But can we sort of revisit of what you're doing from really day one and maybe more like day -5 to day +5. And we can identify items and components which often cost very little or nothing. It's just a gesture. And people appreciate gestures. We are human beings. We appreciate human gestures, especially nowadays when you don't have almost any contact with others, especially where I live or we're living. It's very limited. And to be honest, that's one of the problems that we had this social distancing terminology. It should be physical distancing and not social distancing. Because you need to do physical distance, not social distance. So showing your sociable side as a healthcare provider, a human side as a healthcare provider, that, we have a healing garden, we have a healing landscape, we have a healing whatever it is. It's like, oh, hang on, I can have an option to go to the hip replacement to here or to here. That's more of a complex product to me. They should try that, even just to start discussions and give a treatment plan.
I love what you're saying, and it's really also playing out in the non-medical tourism side, where there are a few health institution, hospitals, and group of clinics who are really just dismissing this possibility because they have patients anyway, as you say.
Yeah.
And the others who are saying that the healing process is holistic and that we can always add a few other things, soft and hard in terms of architecture and soft in terms of human touch. And in a sense, place this shift in paradigm, which we all hope that we're creating, where disease won't be just attacked through a war narrative, but rather how can we generate more well-being where disease doesn't have a lot of room to play. And instead of focusing on how to beat the disease or how to just turn the page quickly on that book, really taking the time to learn from the disease and to change our identity to a wellness creating identity, habits, lifestyle, rather than just waiting for the next disease to show up.
Yeah,
and travel here is one of the best experiential ways of showing this, because everyone loves to travel, or many of us.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of terminologies, when you talk to the general public, I think balance and harmony, those are words or expressions people can relate to. When you go to the wellness, well-being, blah, blah, blah terminologies, then starts to be difficult because language, because of commercial translation of it. Balance and harmony is a kind of a common word that you have your own understanding of it. And to be honest, that's what we're aiming at. Because if you had more interest and paid more attention to lifestyle, then it would be a balanced or more balanced every day as well as holiday. But that's just our job to transmit that message that we are creating more balanced and more harmonious experiences. And yes, you can label it as well as if you want it. Let's go ahead. But at the end of the day, when you engineer that experience or engineer that more like value propositioning, then you know that you're aiming at a more harmonious. It could be conference, could be a wedding, could be a I have to give you this example that weddings, especially destination weddings, tremendously stressful. It's theoretically it's one of the best things in one's life, but it's so stressful. Is it going to be raining? Is it going to everybody arriving? Is the luggage there? Is no snakes? All sorts, especially while in Mexico. And you arrive stressed, vibrating of stress. And when I asked hotels and resorts, and do you provide pre-wedding ritual to the groom or to the bride and to the mother-in-laws? Oh no, we don't. I said, are you mad? I mean, seriously? And especially after the wedding, when everybody is kind of calming down and everything went fine, do you provide anything that kind of follows up? And no, that's not part of the package. It said, guys, I don't know where we should plan how you're living, that you're missing the boat. You're missing business. Not everybody would take it, but when you say that, prepare yourself physically and mentally for the wedding, the big day, just come 2 days early and we give you the bridal package or the groom package, which has food and has massages and skincare and has all the rest of it. And you will look your best ever glowing skin when on the beachfront, instead of coming 2 hours ago from the airport and being super stressed. Alternatives. I think what our job is to tell these operators or people or DMCs, whoever those are, that you have options. You have options. Some people will like it. Some people will absolutely love it. And don't forget, that's what we call a blue ocean strategy, that you create your own market. You don't go against the other brands and, that hotel is here, I have to go against their brand, and there you go. Instead, they said, yeah, lovely, brilliant. I'm very pleased for them. How about I create my own marketplace? And I am talking about what I am fantastic at, and let them talk about whatever they prefer to talk about, and not like, that's $5 more, so I need to go under. But sometimes it's not the price. Sometimes it's the price. But price and value, that's not independent. And most of the time, wellness improving components are not expensive. They're just thinking. You have staff, you have time, you have resources, but they just don't think about it that way.
How can you
you seem lost for words.
So I wanted to ask you more about your own personal life and your own personal journey, because this understanding of how just the things you just explained really have some resonance, I bet, with your own transformation journey, your own well-being journey. Is there any story on your life, or at least showing us how, even that you studied art and business and tourism, and really, trying to get your hands into as many things as possible in this wide world, and to have a conscious, reflective way of being, in a sense?
Yeah, that's a very what's the word? Very personal note here, and that's totally fine. I think the why I'm blabbing is that I would like to formulate the best answer to your question, which is absolutely, there's always a personal reference there. Sometimes it's pronounced, sometimes it's not. Pronounced certainly when you like personally certain things, like I always liked the hot springs, I always liked bathing, I always liked anything to do with wet spaces, always. Any part of the world I'm going, the first thing which I can try. So that's been there for the last good number of decades. And many of other things built on top. Obviously, as a personal life, I wouldn't necessarily call it journey, because it's a little bit kind of devalued by now. Everybody's in a journey, just like wellness. That you always have personal ups and downs. That's part of life. That's just no question. Some personal issues certainly happened, which made me stop and made me think and revisit and revalue. Some of them are health related, some of them are let's say personal in other level, and certainly has it, and then you would need to reevaluate. I think what is really essential here, that I believe I've always been relatively self-aware, that I was able to kind of position myself in a certain situation. I wasn't floating around as such. It's a personality thing. So I could look at myself from outside, and that helps. Often it doesn't help. It makes you a little bit kind of paranoid, but and it has some kind of counter effects as well. But that certainly helped, that you have this ability to review whatever is happening to you and put it into context. And you can work on that. Not just, I'm not talking about 20 self-help books, but more like reality checks and accepting comments from the environment, not from everyone. You always have to check who is saying it, not what the person is saying.
What I thank you for sharing that, and what I think is amazing on these, those of us who are working in health and wellness, the value we have to legitimize this turning inside, and to look for those experiences in our own life who have shaped us and have helped us, and using those as material, inspiration, knowledge, and experience to translate into our work, either clinical as a health professional, or as a hospitality or medical institution who's receiving patients, because they're living the same lives that you and your own family have lived, and the same losses and the same problems. And instead of separating, let's say, work and home life, really bringing these together. And I think that will enrich both experiences. What do you think?
Yeah, working in travel business, it's a curse, because you're always working. Because every time you go somewhere, you either register as, oh, fantastic experience, you need to remember this, so you just store it somewhere, or you compare it to another experience which you had before. So you're always rolling, and always, I mean, not 100%, but 95% of the time you're always working, and you're saying, oh, it's fabulous, I'm so happy to be here. So yeah, absolutely, the transferability of approaches and knowledge in especially health, because health is not just physical, it's mental and social and all the other aspects of it, the domains. And that's what the trick is, to be able to transfer, and to what you learn here, to bring it here, and other way around, because that enriches the other part and completes the other part. And I think that's what really is, this healthcare really is. Instead of delivering treatments as such, more like providing solutions. Computers did exactly the same 30 years ago, that you don't buy a machine, you buy a solution. And healthcare does the same, either prevention or looking at a certain indication, or you do rehabilitation. I mean, there's the major three things, and that you provide benefit, you provide that happiness. So you provide, when you sell, let's say, a hip replacement, you are actually selling a painless life. You're not selling hip replacement as such. Who cares? You do the healthcare professional, do it. I mean, whatever you need to do, just all I'm interested in, I don't want to have pain, full stop. But that's a transferability of understanding that in arts, what you do is not just the spectacle to the eyes, but you spectacle to the brain, and to be able to be transferred to a different place, literature, travel, having a fantastic meal in a restaurant is always transferability. Can be transformation economy. That's exactly what it is. And when you combine it with circular economy, there you go. But that's not necessarily typical. But that's why we have these discussions, to highlight all those opportunities and all those challenges that businesses as well as individuals may have.
Amazing reflection. Thank you. Is there a place in the world where you travel where you don't feel that you're working?
Yes, of course there is. Yes, of course there is. Well, it's a lot actually. Depends which mood I am in. That would be a very different place. You want to have an exact name now? You want to have an exact location, for example, for the matter? Okay. Okay, that's difficult. But look, often is something to do with bathing. The dopamine is important for me. And if you combine bathing with music, you're done. That's me. And that's something. It could be music as of nature, but music as well as orchestrated. So combine those two, and I will be very pleased. And I won't be working. I will be really just enjoying the given moment. There are a couple of places in the world like that, and that's fabulous.
Any final words that you would like to share with the audience that's in the healthcare and wellness industry, and how do you see the next 5-10 years?
I think anyone, doesn't matter where you are, healthcare, hospitality, spa, travel, whatever, doesn't matter. You need to show ability to incorporate ideas from somewhere else, from another industry, from another field or other domain or other market. It's difficult when you're in healthcare because it's so rigidly supervised, and all the laws and regulations. So it's obviously has to be a regulation, but also has to be some degree of adaptability and flexibility in healthcare as well. And we now see the healthcare and hospitality coming closer a little bit. And I think those will be successful, really. And success, I mean by trade, by guest experience, success rate in terms of treatment success rate, and all of those things, those that are able and ready to incorporate those experiences from somewhere else and adapt them to their own situation. It's always, if you think about it, it's always been like that. Pioneers, and the pioneers paved the way, and everybody's going to do it. Now we really need those pioneers, and we have a couple already. But just we need to see how that is going to roll out to other parts of the business or the activities, and how governments, I need to say governments because of the regulation of healthcare, show that understanding that healthcare department is one, and hospitality belongs to a different department altogether, never ever even in the same lift, let alone talking. And that doesn't help, really doesn't help. Well, New Zealand shows ways how to do it, and Iceland shows ways how to do it, how other ways you can do it. But I would move away from the commercial understanding of wellness as such. Leave it to others who want to do it, fine. Be with it and run with it. In long term, especially when you look at government or regional government or destination or city, or when you create a master plan for an area or a part of a city, you need to go beyond that. And there are solutions. I mean, it's not impossible. Just you need to be a little bit more critical here. And seriously, Mexico, I mean, I wish. I wish I had half of it over here. What you could do and work with as such. And don't forget, you have an amazing market right next to you. And you have to work on that market, though. You have to work on that market. It doesn't convert automatically.
László, thank you so much for doing this amazing conversation. And I really hope that we can meet in person sometimes, either in Mexico or in Hungary or wherever there is a good bathing and music experience, so that you can teach me how to do it properly.
Yes, let's do it.
All the best to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Nos encantaría recibir tu retroalimentación de estos podcasts para continuar generando contenidos que te sean útiles e interesantes. Si puedes, déjanos un comentario en la página web victorsaadia.com.